So, hi Simran, welcome to my podcast.
Hi. Hey, thanks for having me. I've been really excited about this. Finally, I somehow took the leap and just chose design, and I'm here now, and it's worked out
Not
well.
sort of blaming anyone, but it's how their upbringing has been.
Glad that I have relatively chiller parents. Drawing is not my strong suit. I'm not this artist that can draw like perfect human figure. On the day of the test, they flipped it. I was shocked. I was like, "Hey, have you missed the sheet? Have you missed the pamphlet? Like something is." I had drawn this beautiful Mahatma Gandhi that actually looked like Mahatma Gandhi. For example, a question they had asked us is, design something that's useless.
I end up designing myself. Everyone from every other direction wants to enter this field.
I'm not going to make the best design always.
So, hi Simran, welcome to my podcast. I'm really excited to have you because I mean, you're just so energetic, so vibey. Like I think this podcast would be something where I don't have to majorly push it through. You'll just do it. So how are you feeling?
Hi. Hey, thanks for having me. I've been really excited about this. I love to talk. बचपन से लेके हर रिपोर्ट कार्ड में मेरा सिमरन इज टॉकेटिव has been a key theme. So I'm really happy to be here. And yeah, I'm super excited to see how this goes.
So what did you think of when what was your first impression when I actually came and told you about, I want to host you in one of my episodes? What did you think?
I felt so accomplished, like so validated that hey, someone actually wants to hear what I have to say or wants to learn about my journey. Yeah, it was a nice feeling knowing that I've made it.
Amazing, yeah. So, okay, let's start with it. Now, I wanted to basically go into your journey and go into your life, figuring out what you wanted to do from your school to, the college aspect of it.
Okay, so to start off, I'm a UX designer. I'm currently working at Adobe. I studied at MIT, which is the same college as you. And yeah, throughout this journey, I got the opportunity to intern with a lot of cool firms like Google, Samsung, Acetize, etc. And on the whole, it's been a super fun and rewarding journey. But it didn't always start out that way. So back in 11th grade, I actually took science with no intention of being a designer or having any awareness that design is a course. So I took science because I wanted to keep my options open. And science is one of those fields that you can do and then you can pivot into anything else. So that was the mindset. But slowly, as I got into science, I realized that it's not just about computer science, which is what I wanted to pursue. So while I did have the affinity for coding, science came with the burden of other subjects like PCM, the whole combo, and that didn't necessarily interest me. And the whole JE race, it's something I didn't see myself partaking in because it required two things: interest, which was kind of lacking there, and the second one is that dedicated head in the book 6 to 8 hours kind of focus and grind to get there. That's the requisite, and I didn't see myself in that space. It's not that I was not putting in the work. I did go to these tuition classes. I had the best teacher. She was so sweet, and I was putting in those 6 to 8 hours, but I was straight up not having a good time at all. And I became really quiet and kind of shut off. And that was really concerning for people around me, especially my family, because, like I said, I've always been very talkative, very high energy, very out there. And my personality has always been a little more than just being good at school, right? I was always out there doing MUNs and participating in different events and sports. So it felt off for people around me that, hey, why is she okay? And a lot of people come up to me and ask me if I'm okay. So it was very obvious that something needs to change and science isn't going to work out. So it was my mom who kind of started to explore what other careers I could take up. And long story short, her friend's daughter was doing architecture. And through architecture, we discovered that, hey, there's something called design, and it has branches like UX, graphics, product. And from there out, we did the research. I found it interesting. I saw myself in this space. But then the challenge was that I couldn't study for design and prep for design while doing science, because science does not give you that kind of bandwidth. So I wanted to switch to commerce, but I didn't want to waste my year. So there was this whole hustle of getting my parents to come to school and to convince the principal to let me switch mid-year, and to say that, hey, I'm going to take responsibility for whatever I missed out in those 6 months, and please allow me to switch to commerce. So there was a lot of support I got from my parents, and I'm so glad that I have parents who genuinely supported me through that, because so many parents were in that, like, just forcing their kids into science. So I'm so glad that I had the privilege to have parents that actually
Shout
get
out
me.
to your cool mom and dad, I think
Yeah,
so, right?
yeah, I feel like that's so important, just to, yeah, it's so important. So yeah, post then I switched to commerce. Commerce was just side hustle, like I was totally focused on design. I was a part of a design coaching class, which was on the expensive end. Like 7 years ago, what we were paying to that coaching class, I would say it was expensive. And I wrote a bunch of design exams. I also wrote a bunch of BBA exams as a backup, and still there was a lot of confusion. But finally, I somehow took the leap and just chose design, and I'm here now, and it's worked out well.
That's amazing.
So
Yeah,
that's kind of what the journey's been like.
that's really lovely. But since you mentioned that your mom was really supportive about your decisions, and she was the one who actually figured the whole idea of design for you. What was that feeling? What did you feel when you sort of got to know that, okay, I might not be able to figure out the ABCs of it, but I have someone who actually is there at all times supporting me with all these things.
Yeah, I feel like 11th and 12th in general is such a confusing phase, because how are you supposed to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life?
Correct.
Right? And even though I would say I'm a self aware person that knows my strengths, at that point I felt like my mom knew my strengths and weaknesses a little better. So she could see that this current environment is not for me better than I could. And for her to step in and for her to be an involved parent, and knowing what my strengths are and knowing what I would align with and just putting in that kind of effort, it meant a lot. And I don't think I would be here without that help. So in general, I'm so glad that I have relatively chiller parents. And yeah, it's nice to have that support, because I've seen friends who don't, and I'm always so grateful and I feel privileged. Yeah, it is my privilege to have that environment and that support, and you can't grow without a good environment.
That's true. That's really true. But any advice do you have for people who, unfortunately, like, it's not even unfortunate, sometimes parents, they don't sort of understand, and it's not, I'm not sort of blaming anyone, but it's how their upbringing has been. It's how it has been going on in their homes. So if there is someone out there who wants to do something really out of the blue, or it's not even like they know they want to do something out of the blue, it's that they know that they're not fitting in the environment that they're already in. Any advice you would want to give to them who specifically might not have a supporter like you had back in your day?
That's a really tough one, because honestly, it's really hard to convince parents. Like, there are aspects that my parents don't agree to, and I think till date I've not been able to convince them, right? But one thing I think I would do, and again, this is just hypothetical because I know it's a really tough situation, is to show them that they will get a return on, they will reap the benefits of the belief that they are sowing in you right now. Show your dedication, be serious. If you are pursuing something out of the blue, stay committed, right? If you're kind of flaky or fickle minded, or if you're showing your parents that you're not very confident, then they will also, that will radiate, and they will also not feel very confident about this new unconventional thing that you're pursuing. And maybe even your past and track record. Like, personally, I have been sort of a responsible child, right? I've lived up to my word, and I've met expectations, and I've been trustworthy, so that helped me. So if you've had kind of a rocky past, build that connection with your parents, spend time with your parents informally, share bits of and pieces of your life and what you're going through. Don't implicitly think that they will understand. Yeah, and I think hopefully that should help you. But again, the blessing of a supportive parent is a rare one.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I genuinely feel for you.
Since you handled all the ideologies and everything of your parents, and you got through the whole that phase where you had to fight through and just be patient with yourself, you've reached now a stage where you have the choice between colleges, or now you are choosing what all your career path is going to be like in the future. What was that journey all about?
Yeah, so to be honest, I was really hoping to get into IIT because I would love for that tag to be associated with my name. And for that, you need to write this exam called USEED. I think I missed it. So there are 3-4 sections, and I missed it by a few marks because there was negative marking. So that didn't happen. Then there was NID, which is again a popular choice. So with NID, typically the paper format is supposed to be 70% logical thinking, mental ability, pattern recognition, and some GK, and 30% is drawing. Now, I knew for a fact that drawing is not my strong suit. I'm not this artist that can draw like perfect human figures. I'm not very good with perspective, and I feel like that's okay as a UX designer. It's okay, right? So I was very confident that I would do well in that test. But on the day of the test, they flipped it. So they made it 70% drawing and 30% mental ability. And as soon as the invigilator gave me the sheet, I was shocked. I was like, hey, have you missed the sheet? Have you missed the pamphlet? Like something has gone wrong. And he's like, no, this is the paper, this is it. And immediately I knew that this is not happening for me, right? And even throughout the test, like there was a particular question where I was drawing bunnies of some sort, and I looked over to my left. I was not cheating, okay? Like it's very natural for you to look, right? And she had drawn this beautiful Mahatma Gandhi that actually looked like Mahatma Gandhi, okay? And she had like, she was using water color pencils and like creating a beautiful background, and I looked at her artwork and I knew it's not happening. I knew it's not happening.
I'm not in the race anymore.
Yeah, I got out of that paper, I looked at my mom and I'm like, hey, sorry, but this one's not happening. So yeah, I let go of those first two primary options, and I think that's okay. I was kind of upset, but I mean, hey,
It's fine.
it happens. And then I think I didn't apply to many other colleges. In private colleges I applied only to MIT and Shrishti, right? MIT had a pretty easy test, a lot of logo recognition and things, and Shrishti had a really fun, weird design test that I actually loved. They had asked like riddles, so they really wanted to see how like quirky you can be, or how like just it was a very different kind of design test. To give you one example, a question they had asked us is design something that's useless. That's useless.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was the brief, to design something that's useless. Right, that it really made you think.
I would end up designing myself. I'll be like, bro.
I think I designed a pen that doesn't eject a lid, but then later I realized that can still be useful because it can be used as a fidget toy.
Yeah, it can be.
So I realized that after the test. But yeah, maybe something that could have been better is a balcony with no way to get to it. Like that's probably a useless thing.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a very interesting test. I made it through Shrishti and I made it through MIT. But the reason I chose MIT is because they had a dedicated placement cell, which I knew was going to be important to, because you want to guarantee that you are going to get a job and you are going to have some help to get that job. And two, MIT seemed to have a very nice structured syllabus, which was easy for me to understand. It was semester wise, whereas Shrishti, they had some kind of a minor major system, which I felt was great if you're more exploratory and you want to explore different things and not just be stuck to UX or graphics. But I felt like for me that structured syllabus made sense because I was very clear that I want to do UX. So yeah, that was my journey, kind of navigating and picking between colleges. And I actually applied to Christ and St. Joseph's as well, which have nothing to do with design. They are like, I applied for BBA and I got through both, and I even paid the fees for Christ, right? And right before I joined, I was like, hey, no, I want to make the leap of faith into design. So there was a lot of confusion. There was no defining moment where I was like, I'm sure, I'm confident. There was a lot of confusion till the very end, and I think that's okay. It's okay to not be sure till the very end, but in the end, do what your gut draws you to. So again, there my parents were super supportive. Like I think that to get the refund, it was a bit of a hassle. We got a partial refund or something. So I did hassle my parents quite a bit during that phase. But yeah, finally everything worked out. MIT worked out. The placement cell really did help in landing those opportunities, to be very honest. A placement cell really does help. So
Yeah.
that's been the journey so far with colleges.
I think the placement cell helped you. Now, I won't comment. Now it's.
I think, oh my god, I think it's completely the market sentiment, and also
Maybe.
with AI coming in and UX changing, the market sentiment towards UX and towards design is changing, right?
In what sense?
In the sense that it's you're going to need lesser UX workforce to achieve the same things, for example, making a prototype or shipping something out, making a UI, it's going to be much easier to automate these things. You might need lesser staff to achieve the same output up to a certain stage, right? So that could become that could make it harder, but I think that's still a while away. But I think it's the market sentiment, which is probably why fewer companies are coming to college right now. But I really hope that will change. And I think one thing you can do to stand out would be to not just be a UX designer, but to be at a product level where you're thinking at a system level and you're very integrated with the business objectives. So you're very aligned with the vision of the product. You're not just working on a feature and doing UX for the feature, but you're very aligned with the vision of the product. What do you need to do to stand out in this market, right? How do we design and build for our product such that it's future proof, right? If you can bring your business thinking and your design skills together, I think that gives you
like
an opportunity.
a more holistic approach to
Yeah. If you're just a UI designer, I think you're at a big risk right now, because UI is something that will get replaced with AI. Obviously, you're still going to need a UI designer, and you're still going to need a skilled person to operate that tool and use things to get that output, right? But again, the number of people that you need to get the same output is going to be lesser, so you have to be the best of the best. So competition's going to get higher.
So why do you think that market is actually, at this position? What's the reason behind it, that back in like 2 to 3 years senior to me, these people had packages in their summer internships which we are not being able to fetch even for a graduation project? That's the disparity that has happened now. So what's the reason behind it?
Number one, economic condition of the US, right? And that kind of impacts people globally. Two, COVID, a lot of people overhired. Tech was suddenly booming because the world was suddenly going digital. People overhired, and then they realized that there isn't actually a need.
Too much.
Right? And so then they laid people off. So that's created this kind of fear,
Yeah.
and the market has kind of changed.
So do you have any sort of forecast that maybe this time around the market might get back to its normal?
I mean, you are seeing markets recover. There are a lot of openings on LinkedIn right now. From what I see, a lot of the openings are for senior designer posts, or like UX design 1, UX design 2, but there are lesser roles for freshers. So maybe it can be a little harder for freshers who are trying to make their name in the industry. But the market is opening up. It is open, and even if you go on LinkedIn right now, you will see a lot of open roles for UX design, product design, system thinking.
Okay, interesting. And as you also mentioned, Abhi, in the start, right now only, that if someone wants to stand out from the whole crowd, because now we know that UX is something that AI and all these things can sort of do a bit of it. Right now only you mentioned, no, that since AI, but it's quite far from where we stand right now, but still, like later in the stages, there is a possibility that AI might be able to make certain UI elements that
So I'm not saying that AI is going to take over UX. I'm saying AI is going to take over some aspects, like
Some
UI
aspects.
especially, and it's going to be your buddy in other aspects. So it's going to make it easier for you to do research or do certain steps or strategize, right?
Yeah,
but
for
it's
sure.
definitely not going to take over completely.
Correct. So that's what I was asking. Now, since in that direction also we are sort of, getting a little competition. I mean, I understand you termed it as buddy for sure, but the companies might think that, oh, if there is a help from that direction, why would they ask for another help from someone where they have to pay it to them? And secondly, there is also a great amount of saturation in this industry. I don't know why everyone from every other direction wants to enter this field, bro.
I'll tell you, it's
Why
the money.
can't you? But there is no money now left.
I would say there is money, and I would say it's not saturated, it's competitive, right? So if you're the average kid that's done a boot camp and like now you expect to be hired by a Fang Mang company, that's not gonna happen. Even if you're super skilled, it's not gonna happen, because that's just not hiring. That's just not how hiring works.
Okay, how does it work?
So if you're aiming for a Fang company, they typically do their internships purely via university collaborations. So having that placement cell is how you get that internship at one of these big companies. It is only when they don't find anyone from the university round do they go and look outside. Right? I'm not saying that if you're young and if you're starting, you can't get into a Fang company. You can, but not at an internship level. Most likely they will fill their pool in that first search via universities. And why do they do this? It's because they maintain these connections with universities. It's kind of like a relationship building exercise for them, because they have certain quotas to bring in fresh talent, right? And that's kind of how hiring works. So if you're just starting out doing a boot camp or a basic course, it's not going to land you internships in big companies directly, unless you have some kind of referral or internal uh, source. But even then, like, there is a process to follow, there is a certain level of transparency, so it is harder, right? And that's the truth of it, that's the truth of hiring
Yeah.
lately. Like, because I see how hiring is happening right now for summer interns for graduation projects, and we do give preferences to people who have formal degrees, and most internships are people who are coming from universities. We're not giving it out to anyone without a formal education.
No one. And is there also like a time duration that you people prefer? Because now what happened, no, we were sort of entering in our summer internship era and everything, and that's when we noticed that most of the people are telling no to us, not because we are not skilled or not because we don't have it in us. They're not even viewing our portfolios because our requirements are 2 months. So does the company look into the duration for which they can hire you, or is it that you're not good enough for them to hire you for 2 months? That's fair.
No, I think it's company dependent. Typically, the 2 month period, it's not about the work. Like, Google does 2 month summer internships, so 2 months is very less of a time for you to do a project that can really make an impact or get shipped. If that happens, good for you, but it's very rare. Mainly, that period is to assess what it is like working with you. Do you have the skills? And then they use that knowledge that they got about you from the summer internship to see if they want to hire you at the end of your 4th year, right? That's the concept of summer internship. So I don't think duration is a factor for most companies. It might be for like startups or smaller companies where they're actually trying to get work done, and that's why they're hiring interns. At that point, they may feel, hey, 2 months is probably going, it's probably too less of a time, because she's going to take that much time to understand the product and the space in itself, right? So maybe that's where the duration angle is coming from. And typically, the second duration that works well is your graduation projects. That's longer. That's about 6 months. So there you actually have opportunity to make something that gets shipped. So I hope that duration is not the factor that's holding you back.
Yeah. Okay. So coming back to the timeline, because this went for a very interesting turn, but back to the timeline. After you figured out now you have to get into MIT, what was the next thing that happened? Because I know you, so you've told me that
Okay.
the fun incident, but
Yeah.
I want. But why not? Why not share it?
Yeah, I think so. I was very clear that I want to get into UX, and my parents had taken a bet on me and quite some hits financially for me. So I was very driven. I was like, hey, I want to do UX. I want to land big companies. So I had a goal. I was super ambitious, right? So my mindset was more career oriented, whereas I felt like people were more fun oriented, which is fine. Like, even I wanted to have fun, okay? But yeah, there was that disconnect when it came to the work. But more importantly, the first year was foundation year, which was not specific to UX, but it was more about getting a general sense and feel for design, which is needed. I understand that now, but back then I didn't enjoy those courses. We had things like material course and human figure drawing and all of that, and I would feel very frustrated. And I feel like other people did not feel as frustrated as me, right? They
Yeah.
seemed to enjoy what they were doing, so that kind of alienated me a bit, or at least I felt that way. So there was another thing. I kind of joined the hostel 6 months later due to a very complicated story, right? So when I joined college, I felt like people had already formed their groups, they had found their tribe. So there was that little bit of a struggle trying to find my people, and I am not the type of person that fits in. Like, I really want to create my own group, create my one-on-one connections, and then form a set of people that I loved. But that was not happening for me. There was some social trouble. So first year was a nightmare, and I kind of developed an avoidance to college. Like, I would just do the bare minimum, get attendance, get the assignments done, and there was like massive escapism. And what I start like after first year, I decided that, hey, I'm gonna start learning on my own. I did a lot of courses, and I basically, you could think of it as, I did my own boot camp in UX. I learned the basic concepts, got really comfortable with XD, which was more popular
Back then,
than Figma,
instead
like
of
7
Figma
years
back
ago.
then. Yeah.
That was the design software. And by the time I came to second year, I knew and understood UX. But the pace we were moving at in second year, again, was not like it was just not matching the mental model of where I was at. And again, there was like, I felt like people around me were not that serious. They were still in that, hey, we're in second year, let's take it a little easy kind of phase. So again, there was that disconnect, and I was not really happy with the way and with the education and the way things were taught to us. I felt like I was not able to learn it to the extent that I wanted to. So I decided to put myself out there and start learning by doing. And so through the entirety of my college experience, I was just doing internships right from second year all the way to fourth year. I was just doing internships, and I feel like that's what really helped me land these opportunities. Right, because when you looked at my resume compared to people from my batchmate, the work experience and variety of work experience that I had was much more, which is a very obvious advantage. And another thing I want to say about the placement cell is when you are applying to, let's say, Google via a placement cell, your competition is just the 150 people who have applied from your year. But when you apply from LinkedIn or an external source, your competition is the thousands of people in the country, right? So that is an important factor. That's why your placement cell matters. Now within these 150 200 odd people in college, my work experience is something that helped me stand out at the portfolio resume level stage. And the second thing that helped me stand out was my personality in interviews, right? I was not like a cog. I would actually talk to the interviewer, ask them questions, crack a joke, be really friendly and warm, show my excitement and enthusiasm. And I would ask them questions to understand what they're working on or what they do. So if I understand that they are coming from a B2B, very business oriented mindset, I would show them a business related case study that I did, right? Whereas if they work in B2C or they're looking to see more of like end-to-end UX process, I would show them a different project, right? So I would actually customize the project and what I'm saying and what I'm doing based on the person I'm speaking to.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was very, very free in my interviews. I always portrayed myself as a fun person to work with, and I think that makes all the difference. There was never any nervous energy. I was always very confident. Even if I was maybe feeling nervous at some point, I never let it show. So that personality, being fun in your interviews, cracking jokes, and making when you present your project, giving it a story and keeping it very chop. Because listen, people take like 6 to 8 interviews a day. So you have to keep things quick, interesting, and go into detail where you're asked to go into detail.
Yeah.
Right? And I would also tell the interviewers at the very start that, hey, feel free to tell me to go faster or slower at any point, and if you would like to know more details about a particular step, please feel free to interrupt me. So I would set that context, right? So I would do all these things, and I think my entire college experience was just interning, and so that also gave me lesser time to be social. So yeah, I think I wish I explored that
Explored a
more,
little
but
bit.
the truth is you can't have it all. You can't have an amazing outdoor social life. You can't be working and doing college and trying to have a decent sleep schedule, right? I think you don't get all, you pick some. Right? So yeah, that's what my college experience was like. And I had some trouble settling into the hostel, and just the culture shock of moving from Bangalore to Pune, not even Pune, Loni, which is like this village area, complete shift from a city girl lifestyle to like living in a place with curfews, with no support, like the kind of support you get at home, you don't really get outside. Yeah, it was very difficult for me to adapt to. I think now I've grown a lot as a person and I can adapt to such situations. But yeah, going through that phase was quite overwhelming for me. So I chose to focus on what I could control, which is my career and my opportunities, and I channeled all my anger towards the situation I was in into my work. And yeah, that's probably what's
amazing.
led to it.
But so I just had this one question now, since you knew that okay, these are your priorities and this is how you want to go forward with things. There are a lot of people who don't know how to balance, college social life with their work life. And it's not like they don't know how to balance, it's more like they maybe it's not like they don't want to balance, it's morely on the area that they don't know how to. Because there are certain times that people want to, oh, I want to go out and be a part of this event that's happening in college. Okay, I want to be a part of this cultural event that's happening in college. But I don't know, they end up making this whole idea that this is sort of guarded by these 3-4 people who always do events. So that's why they don't come ahead and do it. and then it ends up being like an area where they sort of don't really end up exploring college. That's a little different direction than what we were going into, but I thought that you might be able to give a little idea into how people can, sort of adjust in that area.
Yeah, I think that's a topic of social politics and emotional intelligence. So I'll get to that in a bit. But speaking of balance, right, I feel like balance looks different for everyone. For some people, it's like a very tight routine. They get up at 5, they do their running, they live their life on a routine. For me, that never worked. I can't live a day that looks the same again and again. I go crazy. So for me, balance was in extremes, which may be very strange. But there were phases where I would work very intensely, and then there were phases where I would take a break. I would not intern for a few months and just chill, right? So for me, balance was in extremes, like extreme work, extreme play, right? With respect to events, getting in and feeling like it's guarded by a few people, I think my biggest pointer is that 90% of it is in your head. You've created a narrative
Correct,
that, oh, this
correct.
group is like cool, or like they only hang out amongst themselves. They may be really nice people, but because you are intimidated by groups or flocks, it's natural to be intimidated by numbers, right? You built this narrative in your head that may not be true, and you don't even try, right? Ultimately, when you're organizing an event, you need all hands on board. You need all the help that you can get,
Correct.
right? So if you are not speaking up or not putting yourself out there, I think you are putting yourself at a disadvantage. No one's gonna come and be like, hey Simran, do you want to join this event? No one cares. You have to go out there and say, hey, I'm interested in this event, can you let me know how to help? And if they kind of push you to some part of the event that you're not interested in, you should speak up. Hey, I was hoping I could help out with this, is there any way? You have to talk. And you have to be nice. Don't be a cunt and then expect people to accept you in their group. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be bitchy about things.
Yeah,
have
you
to be
don't
nice.
act entitled.
Correct.
Just ask nicely.
Yeah. And also, you said a few things about courses.
Yeah.
The courses that you did, and also you said that I did multiple internships, multiple freelancing stuff, and everything. Now, yes, multiple, yes, but I want to know what was the first freelance gig or internship because I remember the first thing is always the one that you're most hesitant about. Because I remember when I wasn't in college when I landed up with my first internship opportunity, and I was in that whole direction where there was this COVID just ended, and I was shifting to offline college, and that's when I ended up with I sort of got this one internship, but I was so scared that maybe I am not knowledgeable enough. I don't know any softwares. I am just entering into college, like offline college. I've just done one semester. That was also arts and crafts in MIT IT. So I had no idea about how to go forward with things. And that's when this one friend of mine, I sort of told him that, bro, I don't think so. I am ready for this and I'm not taking this internship up. And that's when he said, you know what, you're giving up. Even if you don't understand, you will learn through the process. You learn through the whole process of learn
Yeah,
of the whole
you learn through it.
yeah. But I remember that one sentence when he said you're giving up. And I don't want to give up before starting anything. Like, I just don't want to, not, if that person has itna confidence in me that I can take this internship up, I should have itna confidence in me that I can do
Exactly.
it. So that was my
Experience.
but that's what I want to learn from you. What was your experience? What was that one trigger that made you feel like, what, I'm ready to take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go for it, and I'm ready to switch from college to industry.
Okay, so 3 things there: confidence, courses, and then what was that initial work experience like, right? With confidence, I wasn't all immediately confident, right? Like, it's definitely the courses that made me feel like I do know enough to be confident. What I would say to you is, you don't have to be really good or the best, but you do have to be confident in the limited knowledge that you do have, right? You have to portray yourself with your strengths at mind, right? And you can always say that, hey, I'm learning, and there are some things that I may not know, but I'm willing to put in the effort to figure it out and put in the effort and make it happen. So that's with respect to confidence. Confidence comes with knowledge. Knowledge for me, at the pace I needed it to come, it was via courses and YouTube. So much YouTube, so much YouTube. I think my screen time at one point was 8 to 10 hours, and so much of it was just YouTube. And I would watch videos at 2x, which I think people around me found quite irritating because right, my mom is also like pagal ho jayegi yaar, normally sun. And I think that was true, because now when people talk slowly I get irritated. Get to the point, right? So yeah. So yeah, I consumed a lot of information at a really fast pace, and some people can't do that, but if you are able to do that, leverage that. That will help you with your confidence, right? So go beyond your college syllabus. Do not expect college to teach you UX. College is just giving you syllabus structure, assignments, a supportive group of peers to learn from, but college is not going to really bring you up to speed. You need to bring yourself up to speed. Whether you do that at 1x or 2x is your choice, right? So the courses I took, don't just do courses for certificates, like it doesn't help, okay? But do pick courses from universities that have some validation. So for example, I used to use Coursera a lot because back then that's what worked. I did a lot of courses from University of Minnesota and University of Illinois, and these were not just UX courses but also business courses. So I did a lot of like business thinking, right? And I think that's what gave me the confidence to go talk to someone that runs a business, because hey, I understand how you run this business, right? And I understand money is a priority, and I understand how to link design to money, right? How is the work that I am going to do for you help you with money? And that's what led to my first gig. It was completely like not paid. It was via a friend I knew. He was building out a business and he needed some help building the app and the associated website. So that's kind of how I got into it. I'm not going to go into details of what it was. I feel like it would be a little bit too much. But basically, in that internship, we used user research to kind of explain to the founder that, hey, this idea is not going to work out, right? Because the people have found other ways to go about this problem, and they're not necessarily going to switch to what you're trying to build because it's too convenient. It's too convenient what they currently have, right? So even though you may be offering certain additional values, that switchover rate is not going to be enough for you to float your business, right? Maybe yeah. So basically that's what the first experience was like. So only designer, and we use user research to use user research to save the business and help the owner not waste his money on this idea but to invest it elsewhere, which he did, and right now he runs a very, very successful firm. So that was one. The second experience was at an incubator. Again, incubators are places where people go to kickstart their business at affordable rates. So do you see how these are all tied to business? So I use business as my way in, right? I said, hey, I'm not just a designer, but I actually understand what you're trying to do and how. I want to use design as a tool to help you make more money, right? And also benefit people at the same time. So second gig also, I think that was the first time I ever got paid and it was nothing. It was 6,000 per month, which is very, very less, right? But I think at that point money doesn't matter, right? So when you're just starting out, you're doing internships, don't go for unpaid ones, because except maybe one or two when you're just starting out, because I feel like unpaid ones are really toxic and they just don't have that mindset, right? Don't get exploited for work experience and exposure. It's not worth it, right? Get paid something, 2,000, 3,000, 6,000, whatever, doesn't matter. Just the mindset that someone is willing to pay you for the effort and time that you're putting in. So those were my initial internship experiences. I used Internshala to get most of my internships. So my big one was Tricetra, which is a firm in the US. So they paid well and they worked in the AR space. So that was also something interesting for me to explore. Post that, through the college collaboration program, I got into Samsung for a live project where we worked on wearables. So how can you make a smartwatch more customized to someone that's a millennial or a Gen Z? I think that's the market they're trying to tap into, right? And that's why we were the right people. So we did a lot of research on how can you make the smartwatch more close to what their expectation is, and how can we make it match their lifestyle.
Correct.
Once I got the stamp of Samsung on my resume, then it became a little easier to land bigger companies, right? So then came Assetize, which was a fintech firm in Dubai, right? Then came Google, then came Adobe, right? So brand brings brands. If you can get a brand, that helps you get more brands, right? So that's what the work experience was like. Yeah, I think you just have to start. If you don't start, if you are feeling underconfident and you don't start, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage. So do what you need to do to get confident and then start. Don't wait till you feel fully ready, because there's never going to be a moment where you feel fully ready, right? Just know enough and take the leap. right?
That's such a nice advice, yeah. And if I have to like sort of ask, what was your day like in perhaps Google? How was
Google.
how was it?
So the Google was during the COVID phase, so it was completely remote, which was such a missed opportunity because the Google office is so amazing. There was one day where I went to office, and that was
Huh.
more play than
Oh,
work, right? So just like taking photos on every floor. I think every floor has a different theme, different games or interactive elements to play with. They have this huge screen, and each section of that screen is like a pixel, and you can go activate different pixels and basically make a drawing. And there was an event that day. We did perfume making, and I explored the canteens. Food in the Google office is amazing, like different cuisines. There are like different dedicated sections for different cuisines. So the Google life is really indulgent. I didn't get to experience all of it, but because of my mentor, he was able to bring me in on one day, and I did experience some of it.
Yeah.
So I think my day at Google was just remotely like working, trying to interact with people as much as I can. But I think what would be more helpful to share is what my day is like at Adobe.
Yeah, for sure.
So Adobe has a very flexible system. It's a very flexible company that understands that to be creative, you need to be fluid with some structure. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are when I go into office. We have a hybrid setup. The rest of the days I work remotely. So the days I work remotely are truly about working deep focus mode and a lot of meetings, right? My life at Adobe involves a lot of communication with a lot of different stakeholders, marketing, PMs, right? There's a lot of communication and planning and brainstorming that happens. There's a lot of discussion before you actually go build something, right? We evaluate it from every parameter. So there's a lot of communication and there's a lot of convincing, right? When you are trying to contribute to a PRD, or you do feel like this is something that's going to elevate the user experience, you need to tie it to the business and really convince a PM, and evangelize for design at some level. So that is a huge part of my day at Adobe. And yeah, so work goes in phases. So that's kind of what the remote day is like. And the in-person days are more play, right? It's more about talking to people, having lunch together, playing TT, or we also have a ice hockey, air hockey,
Ice hockey.
air hockey. So we have an air hockey machine, foosball. So it's more about playing, interacting with your colleagues, building one-on-one relations, and also doing a few in-person meetings. So you have that dialogue and that connect. A lot of whiteboarding, actually drawing on the walls and thinking and working together. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun cultural things happening. Like sometimes I organize these board game days, right? So we take an hour or two out of our day and play board games with our teammates. It's a very cool culture, and it's fun. Yeah. But and so I like I said, work goes in phases. So one phase is contributing to the PRD, contributing to the vision of the product, what needs to be built, talking, communication, convincing. The second part is building, right? So that's where you do your core UX work, your comp analysis to see how other products are doing it. You do your low fidelity wireframing, brainstorming, ideating, going back and forth and figuring out, okay, finally this is what we're building. And then there's the UI phase. We do things end to end, so UX designers are responsible for the UI as well. That's where we go build out the UI, where we have to use the design system, so it comes with some constraints, right? And then we build the UI. So based on the phase I'm in, I'm doing different work, and ultimately you ship the UI out. After that, my work is more about communicating things to engineers, picking up on changes that are needed in that based on feedback that comes from engineering. So typically that's what a month at Ruby would look like.
It was really, I mean, it sounds really cool.
Yeah, there's
I think there's a perfect balance of work and
one
life
thing
out
Adobe
there.
gives you is work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I'm truly grateful. Like Adobe is one of the best companies to be at for design. They really give you the flexibility that you need. At least that's my experience. I know colleagues who do have to work late nights to coordinate with US, and they might have a slightly different opinion, but I've been lucky enough to be in a team that garners me work-life balance.
That's so cool. Now, I also wanted to ask you about this one thing where we were having this discussion once, and I sort of was just telling you how I'm getting these blockers at work. I don't understand this, I don't understand that, and you sort of told me that you need to make your mind sharp enough to come up with new ideas, and at the same time make it sharp enough to pick up a problem at a go. And that's when you sort of told me this anecdote, that you can, whenever you're surfing through an application, you can really figure out, you can just be conscious about where you're having a problem and not. So I would really be excited if you can just go ahead and tell that to our audience, because that was really cool. I sort of implemented that advice the very next day, and I have like a list of 7 to 8 things per application that I find extremely annoying.
Yeah. I think the the theme that I started telling you that story in was like building something for your portfolio, right?
Correct.
So yeah, a lot of times I felt like my portfolio project had to be completely unique, and it had to have a business angle, and it had to be this completely fresh, new, innovative idea that no one has done before. But then I realized that if I did have that, I wouldn't be looking for a job.
You wouldn't be?
Looking for a job. I would be starting my own startup,
Correct.
right? So get rid of the idea that it's going to be a perfect project, right? So then what do you build your projects out of, right? Two things. Either you are finding a problem and solving it end to end, or you are taking a mid experience and elevating it to create an amazing experience, and that differentiation is what makes the product better, and that's what makes them more money. So using design as a strategic differentiator, right? So that's when this whole talk came about of building that affinity to find problems, right? So let's say if you're using Instagram, something I do a lot on Instagram is save, right? If I see like a workout reel that I really like, I'll save it. If I see a art reel, I'll save it. And now I have 40 plus folders of different things, right? And I find it really difficult to find things and save things. So that I noticed that that's irritating for me on the app. Now I could make a project out of that, right? How can you improve the experience of save on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Or the other way to go about it is seeing problems around you. So for example, Google Pay, right? I've seen my grandparents use Google Pay and they are very flustered. So how can you redesign Google Pay for someone that's old, right? Or just pay attention to problems around you and try to make projects out of that. For example, when I am using Netflix on my TV, I find it really hard to type the
Correct.
name of the show. I think some TVs have the whole like
The
speak into the
microphone
mic,
and
but
everything, yes.
for some reason my TV like that, let's not get into it. It doesn't like operate the way I want it to. So I have to manually type, which I find very irritating. That's a problem. Now how could you solve for that? That could be your portfolio project, right? So pick. Get into the habit of spotting red flags. I think that helps you not just in UX but life. Find problems, search for them. Right? Maybe
Be cautious about them. Please.
don't become cynical, but like look out for problems.
Yeah.
And solve those problems.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And be fussy. If something's not working as expected, that is your opportunity to elevate it. So look out for these things, and that's how you can implement what you learned by solving those problems that are not even related to your job. That's how you learn and build an affinity for UX and bring that problem solving mindset to your work.
All of these lessons sort of are connected to each other in some or the other way, because if you take feedback genuinely, you won't take it personally. If you don't take it personally, then obviously things would work out. So yeah, lovely. And the last question is, what do you think is the yellow in you?
The yellow in me.
What is something that makes you different? Like, I know that you're full of vibrant colors and energetic and everything, and I love that. But what is that one thing that makes you feel that you are different,
That I'm different.
or you stand out? You're the
I'm-
yellow.
I'm
Something that you just, people will look at, be like, oh, I can just. If someone says about this thing, you know that this is the girl who will pop up.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to introspect on that one. I think one is definitely my energy. I get really excited about little things, and
And that's
then
that's
I'm
really
excited.
sweet,
That
yeah.
spreads, and people around me get excited.
Romanticize everything in life.
Yeah, so I think something that people would associate me with is energy, and two, I think what makes me different is I can be a good speaker, right? I'm a big yapper,
Yeah,
a
I
big
can-
talker. So people often come to me when they have, like, I recently did a lot of webinars on UX design, right?
I saw on your stories. I saw.
Yeah, so people tend to think of me as the go-to person when something needs to be said. Yeah.
That's also a good thing, you're not afraid of whatever other people might
Yeah, I
think
think I'm
about.
very vocal.
Yeah,
Very
that's a
vocal,
good
and I'm very blunt with my opinions, and I can be myself and be on a stage and say what I want to say. Maybe that's something that makes me I don't know, different.
Yeah, it's a beautiful yellow. Not everyone has a yellow like this, and it's a really great thing. Yeah. So with this, we come to the end of the podcast. Simran, I had a great time talking to you. Learned so much, and genuinely enjoyed that I found someone who matches the same energy level as I
Thank
do.
you for having me. I think it's just so nice
Yeah.
to be here, to feel like, hey, there are people out there that actually want to know about my life, about my journey, and thank you for giving me that platform to share little nuggets of wisdom from my life. Thanks, man. Thank you.
Sure.